Kiati. I am the head of Joshi Advocates. Thank you very much for joining me in this video. This is an emergency broadcast, primarily because something unusual has come to light in terms of the EU settlement scheme. Now we're going to run through the three difficulties we've had. The first is the withdrawal agreement, which underpins the EU settlement scheme. The second is that UK is still a member of the EU. And the third is the loophole created by the EU settlement scheme. Now let's look at the first one. You see, normally when the Home Office application process is introduced, there would be a law underpinning it. And as far as the EU settlement scheme is concerned, the draft withdrawal agreement is underpinning the EU settlement scheme. Now the draft withdrawal agreement was a product of the negotiations between the UK and the EU upon leaving the EU. And that meant that UK would no longer have to abide by any treaty conditions or rights upon the EU nationals. And the UK negotiated this, and great, there was a withdrawal agreement which is draft. But this agreement has not passed Parliament, and we have not left the EU. Considering the premise of this agreement was that we would leave the EU on 29th of March. Having not left the EU, there was an extension granted to the UK until 12th of April, and now the government has asked for a further extension until June 2019. We don't know if there will be a further extension until March next year. Now, considering therefore that during these extensions UK is still a member of the EU, the withdrawal agreement that underpins the EU settlement scheme therefore legally could be argued that it does not hold any technical legal weight. That begs the question that if a document is issued under the EU settlement scheme, is that document technically valid? Now, so that's the first problem. The second problem is, as long as the UK is a member of the EU until they have left the EU, the UK continues to be a member of the EU, and as long as it is a member, the UK must abide by its obligation under the treaty, which is freedom of movement of people. And those people have to exercise their treaty rights to live in the UK, which means either they're working or self-employed, self-sufficient or student. The oddity of this is that the EU settlement scheme allows European nationals to settle in the UK when they have not exercised their treaty rights, despite the fact that EU is still a member of, despite the fact that the UK is still a member of the EU and bound by the treaty obligations. And finally, the loophole that's being created. Imagine that the EU settlement scheme is in place, which is this now, and the EU settlement scheme says European nationals show that you are living in the UK for less than 5 years, you get pre-settled status, or 5 years living in the UK and you get settled status. Right. If a European national comes in the UK now and say that we have an extension until next year, that European national can, under the EU settlement scheme, obtain settlement or be on its route to settlement without having to exercise treaty rights, despite the fact that UK is still a member of the EU and signatory to its treaties. Yet the European nationals are not required to exercise their treaty rights in order to settle in the UK. That is the loophole. And therefore our concern is the legal premise of this EU settlement scheme. As a result, we have asked Mark Field MP to put this matter to the Secretary of State for the Home Department and seek clarification on this. Will the public ever be told, oh, the EU settlement scheme was not valid, and have the rug pulled under their feet? Or can the EU settlement scheme be put on hold or suspended until there is a withdrawal agreement passed to the Parliament, or until there is another agreement, or until there is law in place that has passed Parliament. This seems premature, and fatally it can have real consequences for the public who are using the scheme. Now I'll leave you with that. As always, subscribe for updates, and I'll see you very soon. Contact me details below. Thank you so much for joining. Take care.